The Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL were released side by side in late 2017, with the Pixel 2 XL typically being considered the better model. And here we are over a year later, and the Pixel 3 and 3 XL have been released. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I've finally gotten my hands on the Pixel 2 XL. So today we're going to be asking the question, is the Google Pixel 2 XL still worth buying? First and foremost, I apologize for the slight crack in the upper left corner of the device. I bought this used off of eBay and it was a really good deal, about $200 less than you would typically see, so I figured the broken display was worth it. So again, sorry for the not as good looking B-roll as a result, but hopefully it won't look too bad. And keep in mind as we get started here, I am primarily an iPhone user. Alright, I get it, but I'm coming into this review with a very open mind, and I've always said before that if I had to use one Android phone, it would probably be the Pixel. And after giving this phone a shot over the last while, I've gotta say I don't think that's changed. Now this phone isn't perfect, in fact I'd say it's inherently flawed to the point that I'm not sure it's really worth buying for a lot of people. But what it does well, it does really well, and we'll get to all that. The first thing that jumped out to me when I started using the Pixel 2 XL was the display. It's awful. You've probably heard about this as it was blasted by most reviewers, but there's just this terrible major blue tint whenever you tilt the device even slightly off axes. And even when I'm looking straight at it, it still seems kind of muted and bluish. It also seems kind of dim to me. I found myself at a very high brightness a lot of the time. I don't know if that's normal or not, but regardless, the screen is just awful to me. And coming from my iPhone XS, it feels like a pretty serious downgrade. I do think the Pixel 2 XL's display deserves all the hate it got last year because it's bad. It's just really bad. But that said, you can get used to it, and it doesn't take that long to get used to it. And once I updated to Android 9, I don't know if this was placebo, but the blue shifting seemed to get a little bit better. I also changed my wallpaper, so maybe that was it. But regardless, it's just, I don't know. I feel like a phone like this just should never have had this bad display. But yeah, main point here, you can get used to it, but there are way better screens out there, and so if that's something important to you, the Pixel 2 XL is just not for you. The smaller Pixel 2 didn't suffer from this problem, by the way, and thankfully the new Pixel 3 and 3 XL seem to have rectified this issue, so it's just this phone's display that is bad. However, that's easily the biggest gripe I have with the Pixel 2 XL. If the screen isn't as important to you as the rest of the phone and you can move past it, then what you're getting is a really solid experience, and one I enjoyed immensely, much more than I was expecting. There are really two main things this phone brings: stock Android and an amazing camera. If those two things are what appeal most to you in a smartphone, then I would say the Pixel 2 XL is a really good option if you don't want to spend more for the Pixel 3 or 3 XL. The fact is, I think this phone can be an actual better value than the new Pixel if you can deal with its compromises. And we'll get to that in a bit, but first let's look at the design. We have a two-tone design with glass on the top, on the back of the phone, and aluminum under it. It looks pretty good in my opinion, and we also have a plethora of color options to make it even better. In my opinion, the panda color looks the best, but unfortunately I couldn't get my hands on it, so yeah. We have a fingerprint sensor on the back here that works pretty well. It's not the fastest one I've used, but it's consistent and you shouldn't have any issues. The phone does feel a little bit cheap. It's textured kind of oddly, and while it doesn't have a bad feeling to it in the hand, it also doesn't really have a very premium feeling to it, if that makes sense. However, at least it doesn't scratch easily, unlike the new Pixel 3. We have a single rear camera shooter, which has been the highlight of the Pixel 2 since it came out. Spec-wise, we have 12 megapixels and the ability to shoot 4K at 30 frames per second, and let me put it this way. When it comes to most smartphones in the last year, the Pixel 2 has easily had the best camera, and while it isn't perfect in every situation, it manages to do a pretty darn good job fairly consistently. I think it's fair to say that this camera outperformed everything until this year's iPhone XS, and that's extremely impressive. It really isn't much different than the Pixel 3's camera, and so if a camera is important to you and you like Android, the Pixel 2 remains one of the best options out there. Portrait mode does really well considering there's only one camera lens, and Google's software is able to cut out subjects to produce really nice shots with that beautiful bokeh. It's easy to say the Pixel 2 XL is a beast in the camera department, except for video. It may have 4K, but oh boy, it does not look good. At least not compared to an iPhone or even Galaxy phones. So if you want a phone for video, I would probably pass on the Pixel. The selfie camera, on the other hand, is pretty pretty solid with 8 megapixels and 1080p video recording. Selfies, and especially portrait selfies, look pretty great, very crisp, and I really have no complaints with it. It also feels wider than most front cameras I've used. I don't know if it actually is, but regardless, I really liked it. Anyways, I'll stop talking about the camera specs and just let you all see for yourselves. This is being filmed in 4K at 30 frames per second, and honestly, it doesn't look amazing. The camera is something I really want to go more into, so I might save that for a future video, but for now, it's pretty plain to see that the Pixel 2 is one of the best buys if you're into smartphone photography. Something that might hold you back from jumping on board, however, is the somewhat outdated specs, although they really aren't that much worse than this year's Pixel 3. We have the Snapdragon 835 processor, which was the standard in 2017, and 4GB of RAM, which is enough. It would have been nice to see more, but I think 4 was enough considering the phone is a year old. The real tragedy here is that this year's Pixel doesn't have more than 4 gigs of RAM. If you were thinking of the Pixel 3 over the 2 simply for performance, I would not bother, as you really are not gaining much at all. In real life use, the Pixel 2 XL feels fast and fluid thanks to Android 9's overall snappiness and short animations. The phone works, and it works well, although it's worth mentioning some people have had issues with it slowing down in long-term use, but unfortunately I haven't used the phone long enough to confirm or deny this. Stock Android here excels, although I absolutely hate the new gesture system. It feels clunky and more like Google wanting to copy Apple than to actually bring a new, decent experience. Luckily, this is completely optional, and you can use the normal home button layout if you'd like. Let's quickly go over some of the many features this phone has, as it actually brings quite a lot. We have USB-C on the bottom, although unfortunately no headphone jack, which is a bit ironic considering Google made fun of Apple for it the year prior. We have IP67 water resistance, which is great. So if you drop it in the toilet or the sink, there should really be no issue, although you probably shouldn't go swimming with it. We have an always-on display, much like Samsung's phones, which is awesome and something I really wish I had on my iPhone. You can squeeze the phone to bring up Google Assistant, which I found to be more of a gimmick than anything else, but if that's your thing, then cool. There unfortunately isn't expandable storage here, which is a bit of a pity, but that's kind of what Google does. The speakers are really nice and loud on this phone, and I was able to use it without headphones, without any frustration, which is good considering there's no headphone jack and I don't have any USB-C headphones. Bluetooth of course also works, and there are some Bluetooth earbuds by Google called Pixel Buds. They were essentially Google's answer to AirPods, and they're just not very good. The overwhelming majority of reviewers agree they're overpriced, and you can find much better Bluetooth earbuds elsewhere. Battery life seems fine to me given that I was making it through the day, but don't expect monumentally good performance despite its decently sized 3520 milliamp hour battery. And those are the features of the Pixel 2 XL, and we've gone over almost everything already. This is a stock Android phone with an amazing camera that is one of the best you can buy even now if you can get past that awful display. Again, the display is something you get used to, but man, I keep bringing it up because it is bad. If only Google had put a good panel in there, this might have been the best phone of 2017. So, is the mouthful that is the Google Pixel 2 XL still worth buying? It is over a year old now, and ironically, I think its fiercest competition is the Pixel 3 and 3 XL. So let's turn to pricing. Google sells the Pixel 2 XL directly for $700, and with that you get 64 gigabytes of storage. That's expensive. What I'd recommend doing is looking for one used, as they often go for around $400 on eBay.com, which isn't bad at all. If you don't need the larger display with the thinner bezels, you could always go for the smaller Pixel 2 instead, which will save you a few bucks. On the other hand, if you're thinking of going straight to the Pixel 3 instead, it's going to cost you at least $800 for the smaller model. So here's the deal. If you want the Pixel brand new, I think I'd recommend the smaller Pixel 3. It doesn't have that ridiculous notch and is only $100 more than the 2 XL. Plus, it's really not much smaller than the 2 XL. If you're willing to buy used or refurbished, then I'd get the 2 XL, as $400 to $450 is a pretty good price point for this pretty good good phone. And of course, if you can find a really good deal on contract, then go for it. At the end of the day, the Google Pixel 2 XL is still a really good phone and not that much worse than its newer counterparts. While you are having to deal with a few annoyances like the display and lack of headphone jack, what you get here is a really solid package and one that'll be fully supported on Android for at least another couple years. And with that, I think I'm pretty much done here. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked this phone, but after using it for a while, I think I made the right choice last year in buying the iPhone 10 over it. In my opinion, the 10 was just the better phone, and being that I had an iPhone anyways, it just made sense. But if you are on the Android side, this is one of the best options you have, and I fully recommend it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. I have another video or two coming on the Pixel pretty soon, so make sure you stick around for that. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram if you want some more tech in your life, links below. And that all being said, I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.